to say that since I moved to New Hampshire, watching your government process unfold has been an enlightening experience is an understatement. It's been really fascinating to watch. I think that the greatest challenge, and I think it sort of goes back to a question you asked of what's a challenge that this district is going to be dealing with in the next year is, I think it's important in order to be an effective leader to be proactive and not to be reactive. As I've sat and I've watched the process that unfolds, and I know I'm taking a risk when I give this answer, but I'm passionate about what I'm about to share with you, and whether you choose me as the superintendent or whether I continue as assistant administrator, I would still advocate this position. As I watched the process unfold, in my opinion, the process lacked collaboration. What I would be doing, or what I would be advocating in the year to come is, if entrusted with this position, is one of the first things that I would ask as a superintendent is for general government and its ancillary administrative team to sit with the school superintendent and his ancillary team to discuss budgets, budget priorities, but more importantly, what are some of the obstacles that are coming in the future. Example. Let's say, for example, theoretically, Guilford needs to buy a fire pump truck for $250,000 in 2 years. That's going to be a budget blip. It's going to be a substantial budget blip. But if in approaching general government and having a conversation with them, we collaborate in the aligning of our priorities so that no one major financial year is hit by this substantial surge, that type of collaboration can get all parties through a very difficult process. But the second thing that I observed in the process as it unfolded this year is that I believe that the budget committee waited, which is under the process the way that it should, to eventually receive the budgets instead of being part of the preliminary planning of the budget. I would be proposing a workshop then at that point, where budget committee members, public hearing of course, would be invited to the same table with general government, would be invited to the same table with school committee, and say, what is the next year looking like? What's the next 3 years looking like? What's the next 5 years looking like? What are the capital investment projects that are coming? What are the collective bargaining agreements? And are there advantages if they were all aligned and renewed in the same year, or if they were allocated out over individual years? I think when you do that and you have those open conversations, then all parties feel empowered in the process and all parties open communication and participate in that process in the spirit of collaboration, as opposed to the potential of coming in conflict and being seen as competing for different sizes of the pieces of pie. I hope I was clear in that response, but I hope that came out the way that I wanted it to. If it didn't, I'll read it out on paper.
Thank you. Okay.
These are very challenging times, and there are shrinking resources. As we've had this discussion today, demographics in New Hampshire are changing dramatically. There are fewer school-aged children, and therefore a smaller percentage of families who have an invested interest in the support of children in school. And it is, at the state level, a huge issue for our communities. At the local level, we've wrestled with this in Rochester, in my experience over the last couple of years, working under a tax cap environment, where our school budget has come in under the tax cap for the past 2 years. That has not been an easy task. I've taken a very careful look at all of our resources to work with our collective bargaining units to find some creative and collaborative solutions in many of the areas of expenditure that have risen dramatically. We have worked as closely, I believe, as ever before with the city government. We were a department of the city in Rochester to do some of those things that Jeff described, capital projects, and understanding what is part of our bond CIP or cash CIP, and worked collaboratively to establish what those impacts will be so that as a city we were able to meet the goals of that tax cap. The calculation is done based on the consumer price index and the valuation of the city, and it doesn't allow for a whole lot of wiggle room in terms of how revenues are raised in the community. So I have had some very direct experience in some challenging environments addressing this issue.
Thank you. Tom?
I tend to look at this question from a different perspective. I look at it from the revenue side. How can we generate additional revenue to remediate or to address any of our budget shortfalls. And some of the things that I've done in my district have addressed those issues so that we've been able to maintain staff, been able to maintain programs, class size. Just not this past September, but September before, we passed a bond referendum by a 2-to-1 margin. And thinking back how challenging those economic times were at that particular point. The bond referendum was for capital maintenance and solar panels in our buildings. Just last week, we met with vendors and we were able to determine that we are going to be able to generate $185,000 next year in revenue from our solar panels. It was the perfect storm that occurred when we did this. We received 40% funding from the state. We had a grant, clean energy grant, and we were able to double the size of the project because the construction costs were down, the cost of solar panels were less, and the price of the SRECs, the solar renewable energy credits, were at their highest. So we reduced the payback on this project, and we've generated revenue for our school district, which is going to help us significantly this year. Some other things that I've done, we've cut anything except essential spending after December 31st. So that if a teacher hadn't ordered a globe or a map by that time, it's going to have to move into next year, just to generate surplus to apply to the next year's budget. We had a district goal for energy efficiency last year, where we, just by turning off lights, turning off computers at the end of the day, and moving to a 4-day summer work week, an extended 4-day work week, we saved $40,000. And when I see those types of savings, I always equate them to teaching positions. That $40,000, that's 2/3 of a teaching position. That $185,000, that's 3 teaching positions. This year, right now, we're in the process of establishing we have a half-day kindergarten program, establishing an extended day kindergarten program on a tuition basis where we're going to generate revenue to apply to next year's budget. So I try, and I will tell you that New Jersey has had a very difficult time with the budget, as every other state in the union. But in our area, we were one of the few districts, if not the only district, that was hiring teachers last year instead of cutting positions and cutting programs. And again, I think the emphasis needs to be on the revenue side and trying to figure out